This video is a continuation of our previous video on the death of Draupadi and the four Pandavas. To know about the biggest sins of their life, watch the video linked in the comments below. Indra was very pleased with Yudhishthira's principles and stance towards justice and says, "You have once again shown your integrity and proven to me why you deserve to enter heaven." At this time, Indra had to reveal the real identity of the dog. Indra says to Yudhishthira that the dog was none other than Yama, the god of death. The very next moment, the dog transforms itself into Yama and blesses Yudhishthira. He takes Yudhishthira with him on his divine chariot to Svargaloka, or the heaven. Yudhishthira did not die or leave his mortal body, but entered the Svargaloka with his body and was very much alive. Yudhishthira receives a grand welcome in the heaven from everyone, but soon is shocked, angry and disgusted to see that Duryodhana was sitting on a divine throne, enjoying the pleasures of heaven. With Duryodhana sat Bhishma, Dronacharya and other Kauravas. Yudhishthira looked around but did not find his virtuous brothers or wife Draupadi in the heaven. He turns to Yama, the lord of death, and asks about his brothers and wife. Yudhishthira finds it impossible to believe that his brothers, who had done so many virtues in their lifetime, were nowhere to see in heaven, while the biggest sinners of all time like Duryodhana and his brothers were enjoying the luxuries of heaven. Seeing Yudhishthira saddened and confused at the same time, Yama explains to him that Kauravas died on the battlefield as warriors to whom duty mattered more than anything in the world. They committed many sins and had wronged many people, but when it came to standing up for what they believed and doing their duties, they were focused and strong-willed. Moreover, because they died on the battlefield fighting the enemy and doing their duty, this earned them so much merit and credit that it wiped out all their debts. Thus, they were granted a place in heaven. Another version of the story suggests that Kauravas were in heaven only for a temporary period until they had experienced the fruits of their good deeds. Yama says that Duryodhana and his brothers had performed many yagyas and sacrificial ceremonies. These ceremonies were conducted by some of the most powerful sages and priests. In return of this favor, Duryodhana had given the sages tons of money, cows, food and gifts until they were truly satisfied. It was the wholehearted blessing of the sages that brought Duryodhana into heaven. Once his virtues were settled, his sins will take him to the next door, which was Narkaloka, the hell. Yudhishthira then asks for his brothers and is worried about not finding them around. Yama says that they were in Narkaloka, suffering for the sins they had committed in their lifetime. He explained that they were experiencing the fruits of their actions, but it was temporary. Once the debt had been repaid, they would join them in Svargaloka. Yudhishthira is horrified and demands to be taken to his brothers. Yama takes Yudhishthira along through the passage of hell. As Yudhishthira enters the Narkaloka, he is disgusted by the unpleasant smell all over the place. It was dark and haunted, a place so sickening that no one would ever want to be a part of. As he and Yama walked in further, he heard loud noises coming from all directions. Those noises were the cries of people who were being tormented for their sins they had done in their lives. Yudhishthira couldn't imagine his brothers and wife undergoing the severe pain of hell. After walking deeper into the darkness of hell, Yudhishthira heard a scream of a woman. The voice was familiar to him. He knew in his mind that it was the scream of Draupadi, but he fought against his thought and tried to not imagine his dear wife undergoing the tortures in hell. He finally saw the woman screaming in pain. It was in fact what he had thought. It was his wife, Draupadi. Both her hands were tied and she was bearing the results of her sins. Finally, Yudhishthira heard his brothers scream and ran towards that direction and found them undergoing unbearable torture as well. His eyes fell on the blood oozing out of their bodies. He was overflown with emotions and could not help them in any way. He turned to Yama and asked him to return in his chariot, as he would not enter heaven without his brothers and wife. Yudhishthira was stern about his decision and thought living in hell with virtuous people like his brothers was way better than living with sinful people, even with all of the world's luxuries around. He decided to stay in hell by the side of the people he loved until they had been through all their punishments, even if it had costed him to undergo physical and mental pain. He was sure that his brothers and Draupadi were righteous people and would get out of hell soon. Therefore, he decided to enter heaven with them sooner or later. Suddenly, everything around changed. The darkness disappeared and the land he stood on bloomed. It was bright and beautiful all around, and the place no longer looked like hell. His brothers, who were covered with blood and scars, were healthy again, and everything around seemed calm and peaceful. Yudhisthira stood surprised and questions Yama what had happened. Yama asks Yudhisthira to recall the one and only sin he had ever committed. During the Mahabharata war, when Dronacharya was killing too many people from the Pandava army, Krishna and Yudhisthira plotted an unusual tactic to kill Acharya Drona. Since Drona had immense love for his son Ashwatthama, he was his biggest weakness. The only way to distract Drona was to give him the news of his son's demise, which would shatter Drona and he would give up on the war. The next morning, Bhima killed an elephant named Ashwatthama and declared that he had killed Ashwatthama, the son of Drona. Drona, on hearing the news, did not believe the authenticity of this declaration, as he knew that his son had divine powers, and killing him in the battle was not an easy task even for the most skilled warrior. He refused to believe the news and continued to kill more people. Lord Krishna then approached Yudhisthira and asked him to declare that Ashwatthama was dead because he was known to be Dharmaraj, a truthful and righteous man. Krishna knew that any word that comes from the mouth of Yudhisthira would be believed by Drona. Yudhisthira was hesitant to give up on his dharma and speak a lie. Krishna somehow tried to convince Yudhisthira that he would not be lying because Bhima had in fact killed a being, an elephant named Ashwatthama, and what he would say would be the truth. Yudhisthira agreed to this and declared that Ashwatthama was dead. Drona, on hearing this from the mouth of Dharmaraj Yudhishthir, fell to the ground and was killed by Drishtadyumna, one of the warriors of the Pandava army. The fact that he said a misrepresented truth, a white lie, to delude a warrior was the sin of Yudhishthira, and all this that happened with him was the repercussion of that one sin he had committed in life. Yudhishthira soon realized that he was not a sinless man, and no human being can be one. Yudhishthira and his 4 Pandava brothers, along with Draupadi, attained moksha or salvation soon after, and merged into the eternal God after fulfilling their duties for which they had been sent on earth.